Well, first of all, have you sat through all 8 episodes of With Love, Megan on Netflix? Honest answers only.
No, no, no. I like the hummus with the olive oil, but no. I have a friend who likes it, but I haven't gone through it. Yeah.
You have a friend that, do you found the one?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think the intention is good, but for some reason, I just don't know why in the execution it comes out so horribly.
You're right. And you and I've talked a lot in the past about their behavior and why it rubs people the wrong way, because typically their actions have been against the royal family, whether it be Spare or the Oprah interview or the original Netflix series. But this is truly innocent. This is actually Meghan trying to avoid anything controversial whatsoever. And unfortunately, she's found herself in a little bit of a controversy here with skincare experts because in episode 1, because you haven't seen it, I'm going to lay it out for you. Aside from her taking a Trader Joe's bag of peanut butter pretzels, excellent, by the way, and dumping them in a plain plastic bag and putting a bow on them and saying, like, look, we've done something nice for one of my house guests. She makes him bath salts. She makes him a ton of bath salts, and she pours in Epsom salt, and she pours in this arnica oil and this lavender essential oil. And basically, skincare experts are saying that this could potentially cause skin damage, whether it be a rash or a burn. I guess what I'd have to look. I think it's arnica oil and lavender oil. It looks harmless enough. This is what the Daily Mail says. But the wannabe princess turned wannabe domestic diva, those are their words, not mine, fails to measure the ingredients, prompting one of her crew members to ask her off camera, is there a certain amount of salt that I'm dealing with here? Markle doesn't concern herself with specifics, saying only quite a bit, because she is clearly winging the recipe. She says, I am not modest when it comes to the amount of salt I put in my bath. I mean, it actually does look really harmless when you watch the exchange back and forth, but there's apparently this other ingredient that you're supposed to include in when you mix essential oils that I guess makes it not as intense, and it won't affect your skin as severely if you include. Don't try this at home, says one YouTuber. Meghan doesn't know what she's doing. I can't remember the name of the additional ingredient that you add that it's supposed to protect your skin.
All right, folks, we have yet another Meghan Markle disaster, and this time, he could actually be sued. According to skincare experts, Meghan's homemade bath salt recipe, from With Love, Meghan is dangerous and could cause burns and rashes. And guess what? She ignored warning signs from her own crew while filming. Celebrity attorney Christopher Melcher joins us to break down whether Meghan could be legally liable if fans try her recipe and get hurt. Because let's be real, is this just bad advice, or is this a full-blown lawsuit waiting to happen? So let's start with what actually happened, because folks, this is a total mess. In the very first episode of With Love, Meghan decides to show her audience how to make homemade bath salts. She throws together Epsom salt, lavender oil, and arnica oil. Sounds innocent, right? Wrong. Because experts say she completely left out a crucial ingredient.
But I guess my question to you is, if I'm sitting at home and I'm your friend and I'm loving this show and I want to recreate Meghan's slumber party with her makeup artist, from pretzels to bath salts. And me or my friend use these bath salts and we get severe burns. Talk to me about what are they? I guess can I sue Meghan Markle? That's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I think so. I think Netflix and Meghan Markle would bear some responsibility because she's in a position here where she is acting as the host and going through these routines and saying, here are the ingredients. Here's my recipe for this product here that you are going to use in your bath. And with that comes a representation, implied representation, that this is safe. This is okay for you to use. And we know that in products, healthcare products, that these are tested. There are some levels of regulation, honestly, not very good regulation in the US, but in other places, much better regulation, but for our safety, because when we go get a product and we go dump it in the bath water or do whatever else we're doing with this stuff, we're assuming that it's been tested and it's going to be safe for us. And you could figure what a horrific injury somebody could have if it's not. So when she's on this show, which is a commercial endeavor, okay, so she's not just hanging out with us, at her house talking about stuff. This is a commercial endeavor. It's meant for people to follow the recipe. And if it's not safe, then there would be liability, in my view, if somebody was injured by it.
Okay, so
unless there were warnings, which I'm not hearing that there are warnings.
Yes, so that's my next question. First of all, it's called carrier oil, and that is supposed to ease the potentially volatile effects of arnica and lavender oils. So the missing ingredient, as far as we know, is carrier oil, which, if you are an expert in this thing, everybody that is an expert in this world is saying, oh my gosh, how do you forget this? So I want to make sure I mention that. Now, I did see a conversation that said typically celebrity sponsors or endorsements of new products, such as supplements, homeopathic home remedies, or over-the-counter potions, they qualify their pitch ads with a caveat to seek medical advice before use. And sometimes you see that before a show, even, like right before the entire episode airs. It's just like a quick disclaimer that says, we're not doctors, or if you're having issues with this, here's a 1-800 number that you can call. So could Netflix save themselves by adding something like that to the beginning of this episode?
That's absolutely necessary, because if there's a warning, then people are on notice that, hey, this hasn't been tested, seek medical advice or whatever, or don't even use it at all. It's just for entertainment purposes. Don't follow this recipe. Something like that, then us as the consumer of that show are not likely to be injured by it because we've been warned. But without that warning or advisement, we're going to think this is perfectly fine to do. And if we have experts saying that the formulation of this recipe is unsafe and can cause damage, then they really need to put this warning on this or cut that out on future views to avoid liability. Because again, we have the right, I think, to assume that if somebody's displaying this, like we say about a potion, but basically a recipe to make something to use on our bodies or in a bath, and it's on Netflix and it's Meghan Markle, that somebody actually who knows what they're doing has looked at this and this is safe for us to use. I think that's reasonable. And if it's not safe to use and there's no warnings, then I think it's also reasonable that Netflix and Meghan would be held responsible for the damages that were caused.
According to skincare specialists, Meghan failed to add a carrier oil, which helps dilute essential oils so they don't irritate the skin. Without it, her bath salt mixture could cause rashes, burns, and severe allergic reactions. This is not something to mess around with. And here's the worst part. A crew member on set actually tried to ask Meghan if there was a proper measurement for the ingredients, and her response? Quite a bit. She was just winging it. I mean, really. If you're giving skincare advice on a massive platform like Netflix, maybe, just maybe, you should actually know what you're talking about. Now, here's where things get really serious. Because celebrity attorney Christopher Melcher is breaking down whether Meghan could be held legally responsible if someone gets injured following her recipe. And trust me, the answer is shocking.
Yeah, because I probably did not, in my dramatic reading, I probably didn't paint the picture of, I think Meghan wants it to be a cute moment, but it's very dismissive. Like, it doesn't matter how much salt I put. It doesn't matter how much. Like, I'm going with the flow. But you're right. She's put herself in the expert position as the host. She's teaching us how to do things, how to elevate. Elevate is the word she uses. I want to ask you about when you sign a contract with Netflix. One friend that I had that worked in the legal department of Disney told me if it was you or I, Netflix more likely is going to make us take all responsibility for anything we do on our show. That's contractually. So the lawsuit would get shifted from Netflix and Meghan's shoulders to just Meghan's shoulders. Well, our shoulders, because he said if this is Meghan Markle we're talking about, she might have more weight than you or I would in negotiations when she signed on. And he said he suspects her reps or lawyers pushed to make Netflix take on the responsibility of any claims that could potentially come out of this. What are your thoughts on that? She probably would have that type of weight to be like, no, I don't want to get in trouble for anything I do on here. Especially with the Meghan and Harry initial docuseries, where there were so many claims thrown at the British royal family.
That's right. So, in many cases, Netflix is just acting as a distributor. So they're not the content creator. They're just using their platform to distribute the content that somebody else has created. And in that distribution agreement or streaming agreement, there's going to be a provision that's saying, hey, and mostly it's on clearances for name and likeness rights and copyright issues that are in that content, because that's the main source of these lawsuits. So the content creator, whoever's selling this and producing it, has to tell Netflix, like, hey, if we get sued for misuse of somebody's name or likeness, defamation, copyright infringement, we're going to show up and indemnify you, Netflix. They also have all kinds of insurance here that's going to cover that. Here, this may have come in as a kind of a surprise. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know that they were thinking about having a bath salt issue
on a cooking show.
Yeah, on a cooking show. So that might have been like, whoa, we weren't thinking of that, and nobody had any kind of product liability issues around that. I think that the difference between a food recipe is like, okay, like if you're making the hummus, like, yeah, this is safe for me to eat. But the bath salts, like, we don't have, as the average consumer or watcher of that program, enough experience to know, like, whether that formulation of that bath salt recipe is safe for us or not, like a food recipe. So Netflix may not have been thinking about that. It might have kind of not been covered by some of these provisions. But to your question about clout in negotiations, sure, there may have been, Meghan may have, had better provisions. We're saying, I'm not going to indemnify you. I also don't know if Netflix was the producer of the show. Some of this is a little opaque. Like who's actually producing the show? Sure, it's branded as a Netflix show, but who actually produced it? But it's the producer that bears responsibility.
Wow, I really had no clue. I guess a part of the reason that I did not think about that is Archwell is definitely one of the producers, Harry and Meghan's production company, but I know she pulled in some physical producers from other successful cooking and lifestyle shows like Selena Gomez's. But Meghan is calling Netflix her partners in this endeavor because there's also this As Ever lifestyle brand launch that is slowly taking place. She has a website full of products that you can't purchase yet, but she says that Netflix is her partner in that endeavor of the tangible products that you can purchase that are vaguely referenced throughout the show, like edible flowers that you can put on your plates and things like that. So I guess I assumed that they would take on more responsibility with Meghan utilizing the word partners so often. The production company being held accountable is really interesting to me, that could potentially be the ultimate issue, especially if Meghan is the production company under Archwell.
Melcher explains that if someone tries Meghan's bath salt mixture and experiences burns or rashes, they could have grounds to sue. Why? Because she's presenting herself as an authority and giving advice without proper disclaimers. And here's the key. It's not just about the ingredients. It's about the fact that she was reckless with her measurements and ignored warnings. Melcher says, and I quote, "When you are a public figure giving health-related advice, you have a responsibility to be accurate. If someone is injured because of her negligence, there could be legal consequences." Yikes. So, is Meghan about to face a bath salt lawsuit? Maybe not yet, but if someone actually gets hurt and takes legal action, this could turn into another massive PR nightmare for her. And if you think this is just drama, think again, because actual skincare professionals are speaking out and saying Meghan's bath salt mix is not safe. One dermatologist told the Daily Mail, "Essential oils like arnica and lavender need to be properly diluted. If used incorrectly, they can cause burns, skin irritation, and even allergic reactions.
Yeah, so that's where the expert knowledge would really come into, because somebody who's producing shows, is paid to think about these type of things, and it's just like, this isn't just a day in the life thing, that they're actually promoting products. Now, I don't think that they're selling the bath salts. I didn't hear that. But still, it's a risk and to everyone. And again, it's not, I'm not trying to bash on her, and it sounds like, and I wish I would have seen it. I want to actually watch it now, because it sounds like a fun thing.
Don't do it.
Yeah, like what, I got my free time.
You're a grown man that is like a very successful attorney. Please don't do this to me, Christopher.
Yeah, like, whatever. I want to see this now. You get me intrigued. But, it sounds like a fun thing that maybe, could ends up hurting somebody. And I really doubt that she would have any intention on harming somebody. But, this is the thing, is we got to be careful. And like I say, it's a difference between making hummus and making bath salts. It's just, I just think she should have been a lot more careful, it sounds like.
Yeah, what I feel like she did is, I think she turned her old blog, The Tig. She tried to convert her old blog, The Tig, which was just fun things like, hey, here's how to prepare for a party. Here's my 3-step pasta process. It, was all over the place, a million different categories, but just about her, her lifestyle. I think she converted that old blog into this television show, and now she's trying to relaunch a lifestyle site and a product line similar to what she had going on with the TIG. So it is kind of all over the place. It's not just, we're going to talk about 3 recipes you can make at home today. It's, I'm making bath salts. I'm also making candles. I'm making pasta. I mean, she did all of that in one episode and went to visit her bees. I mean, it was very much all over the place. But you're right. Nothing was intentional. I think the annoyance is that if a typical person approached to Netflix and said, look, I don't know how to make candles, and I'm not a professional at making bath salts, but can I have $100 million deal? Netflix would slam the door in their face, and you'd never hear from them again. They might even file a restraining order. But here's somebody that is claiming to be an authority on these things, and they're given this huge opportunity and not doing their due diligence. It's the same with American Riviera Orchard. For a year, she promoted a brand named American Riviera Orchard, and 2 weeks before the launch, she changed its name to As Ever because she hadn't done the due diligence and secured the trademark.
Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and you would figure that she would have the machine there behind her with all the advisors and doing all this stuff. So, like I say, it's hard because she's really putting herself out there. But then when you're doing that, you have to have the professional advice. And Netflix, yeah, they're throwing a lot of money at it, but look at all the people talking about the show. So they kind of maybe win either way. If it's great programming and people really want to watch it because it's just, so awesome to see her do all these things, they win. And if it's a disaster, then, well, people are watching it and talking about it too, just because they're, for a different purpose, really, to make fun of it, I guess.
You're very, very right. How can people keep up with you?
Well, I'm over on X. I still hate calling it that, but
I do too. We're on Twitter.
Yeah, I still like Twitter, but that's usually where I'm posting up and also doing interviews for other media outlets on. Lately Menendez Brothers is the last one.
I'm very, I've been seeing that the new DA getting his butt kicked over his stance on the Menendez brothers, but I pretty much side with him on everything. I feel like if there was abuse, I'm so sorry that they suffered any abuse, but if there was abuse, that feels like a mitigating factor to me. That doesn't feel like justification for the crime. And I think they're right where they need to be.
So basically, Meghan's fun little recipe could send someone to the dermatologist. And let's not forget, Meghan didn't just do this in her private kitchen. She put this on a major streaming platform with millions of viewers watching. Just one person gets injured. That's a huge liability. And I have to ask, why didn't anyone on Meghan's team warn her about this before airing the episode? Did Netflix seriously let her film this without fact-checking? Or was Meghan just too stubborn to listen? Either way, this is looking bad for her. And now let's talk about the bigger issue here, because this is not just about bath salts. This is about Meghan Markle's credibility. Her Netflix show was supposed to be a lifestyle brand. Now it's being called reckless and irresponsible. She claims to be an expert in wellness, but she doesn't even know basic safety rules for skincare. Legal experts say she could be sued. Is she really this careless? Her PR team is silent. Will they let this controversy spiral out of control? At this point, Meghan's lifestyle expert image is completely falling apart. And the question is, will she take responsibility for this mistake, or will she just try to pretend it never happened? Because here's the reality. If she doesn't address this soon, it could turn into a much bigger problem for her.
Yeah, it's really polarizing. And, for me, growing up and seeing that story unfold, when it happened, I think where it is they've served a very long time in prison. And even though I think that they're guilty of sin and got the sentence that they deserved, that it's not a bad thing to re-examine it, but only if they were to take responsibility. And they really haven't done that. They're just saying, hey, we're the victims here, even though they shotgun killed both of their parents and never really adequately explained why they would have to kill their mom if their dad was molesting them. I never understood that. So that's what the DA was saying, is it's like, hey, come forth, take some responsibility here for it, and maybe we will recommend a release after so many years in prison, but not until they do that.
Have you seen that recent case about where a young man was inspired by the Netflix series 2, I believe it was? And I just think they were glorified. They had this like pop culture moment that almost glorified them. And then it inspired things that were just as bad. And I'm just ready to put it away again. They disappeared for a long time, and I'm ready. Sorry, I know it sounds probably kind of cruel, but I'm ready for this case to disappear all over again and for them to serve their time.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, they've exhausted every which way to try and get out, and the only two real avenues that are available to them now is maybe the governor granting clemency, which he literally holds the key to their prison cells. They're also trying to get out on some new evidence, but that's hopeless. It's never going to work. And so it's really up to Governor Newsom at this point is their best bet. But I don't see him.
Do you think Newsom would do that when he's so intent on being the next president? I almost think it might jeopardize future president campaigns.
Yeah, I do not see Newsom helping out, so this is probably it for the Menendez brothers.
Look, I got a little extra. I'm so glad I got a couple of cool questions with you about the Menendez brothers. I'm so lucky. Well, thank you so much for your insight today. You have my email address, so the second you are done with episode 1, I expect your review. I want your verdict. I want a clear, concise review from you. And if you are impressed by it, we're going to have a talk, a strong, wordy talk about you being impressed by pretzel to pretzel distribution by Meghan Markle.
All right. Well, I will do that, and I'll make sure to put the carrier oil in the bath salts when I make it.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you again soon.
So, let's break it down. Meghan Markle's bath salt recipe has been called dangerous by experts. Her crew tried to warn her, and now? A celebrity attorney says she could be held legally liable if someone gets hurt. Meghan ignored warnings about her bath salt mix. Could she be sued? Skincare experts say her recipe could cause burns and rashes. Why didn't she fact-check? Christopher Melcher explains the legal risks. Is Meghan in trouble? Will Meghan finally take responsibility, or is this another PR disaster waiting to happen? At this point, Meghan's credibility as a lifestyle expert is in serious question. And the biggest question of all, if someone actually gets hurt following her advice, will she be held accountable? So now the big question, should Meghan Markle be legally responsible for her bath salt disaster? Will someone actually sue her? And is this the final proof that her wellness guru act is a total joke? Let me know in the comments.